Hello, welcome to La Quinta Book Fest Revisited. Since we were unable to host Book Fest 2021 here at the library, we thought we'd reconnect with previous panelists to see what they've been up to and talk about their latest projects. I spoke with Ezra Claytan Daniels about what's inspired him lately, his recent work including Bottom Feeders, a graphic novel about gentrification and cultural appropriation, the essay Are You at Risk for Empathy Myopia, as well as what he's working on right now. So sit back, relax, and please enjoy the segment of Book Fest Revisited. Well, Ezra, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's so nice to reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we chat about your awesome work, a lot has happened, obviously, since we had Book Fest 2020. I still sometimes can't believe we had it.
I know.
But I wanted to ask, what has inspired you this past year?
Oh man, that's a really good question. It's been obviously a really crazy year, and I've learned that for better or worse, I'm one of those people that deals with stress and trauma by burying himself in work. So I've put these work blinders on and just been super, super productive over the past year.
Well, that's good.
And I used to think my work schedule before the pandemic was to ride my bike to a coffee shop in my neighborhood every day. I'd ride my bike to a different coffee shop and work for a couple hours and come home. And it was my ritual. And if I wasn't able to do that for a few days, I would get so stir crazy in the apartment, just being I got to get out of here. I'm going crazy. I'm nothing is inspiring me. I've got no input to create my output. But there's something about the pandemic, just having no option to leave the house. I just accepted it super fast. And I was just okay, I'm just going to stay here and work all day, every day. And I know it's not emotionally healthy for me to do that. I know that on the other side of the pandemic, there's going to be a terrible psychological break that I'm facing. But in the meantime, I'm getting a lot of work done.
Well, that's awesome for now, at least.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, I want to get into it. So real quick, I want to talk about Upgrade Soul. I read that as a digital reading copy, and it just blew me away. I was just it was the first work I'd seen of yours, and I was just everyone needs to read this. And it's just beautiful, but also gut punch of a book. And it's also an app, and I wanted to ask what the process was like for transforming it into that format.
Well, Upgrade Soul is a project that I was working on for many years. I started working on Upgrade Soul in 2000, 2001. And my plan was to come up with the story, come up with a pitch, and pitch it around to publishers and try to get published. And I hadn't published a comic book at that time, but I thought I had some talent and some skill, and I thought I could do something in this world. So I started pitching it around starting in 2003, 2004, and I just didn't get any traction in the publishing world. But I still had enough faith in the story to keep working on it. So I'd chip away at it during nights and weekends. And every few years I would come to a milestone, I would finish illustrating a chapter, and I would pitch it around and still wouldn't get any response from publishers. And eventually I just kind of gave up on comics publishing. And around that time, a friend of mine who is a digital artist was thinking about coming up with ideas for creating a digital comics reader for the iPad. And the iPad was a pretty new thing at the time when we started talking about it. And he's this new device is it's perfect for reading comics on. So he came up with this really cool idea that was a music focused comics reader. So the Upgrade Soul app is music is a huge component of it. So we worked with a composer from Pittsburgh named Alexis Gideon to compose an original score for the book that keeps pace with your progress through the thing. So as you swipe through the panels, the music dynamically changes to fit the mood and the punctuation of whatever panel you're on. And we did this thing where it's this 3D accelerometer. I don't know what the terms are, but when you move the iPad around, it makes it look like you're looking at a 3D picture box.
Yes, it's so cool.
So we launched that in 2012, and it was one of the first immersive / interactive comics projects for the iPad. And really the only reason that I jumped on that opportunity, I loved the idea of it and I thought it was really cool, but I was just desperate to get the story out there. So I jumped on it because it was an opportunity that presented itself, and it did pretty well. And then I kept on working on the story and eventually finished it. And then when I finished it, I submitted it to the Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity in Comics. And I won that award. And then once I won that award, then suddenly publishers were oh, where have you been all our lives?
So, I've been here.
Yeah, totally. So then I got a bunch of attention, and we put the book out, and then, yeah, the rest is history.
It's amazing. We read it for our graphic novel club because I think I'd found it not long before we started that, and I was like, we have to read this. So yeah, it's so good. And I just recently read your essay for the Dwayne McDuffie Award about diversity, and
Oh,
it's just such a good article, you know, our essay, and it was amazing.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And also this, I just read this, finished it like last night. I mean, I read it
Oh,
before,
nice.
but I wanted to read it again, and I just want to show readers the cover because it's amazing. Now, this was your first collaboration with.
But yeah, well, no, it was not my first collaboration with Ben. We collaborated on a short story for an
Mm,
anthology called Speculative Relationships, which is an anthology of sci-fi romance stories. It's
mm,
published by Tyrell Cannon from Chicago. So we did a short story for that, and that was like our test, like to test the waters to see how well we worked together.
mm-hmm.
And that went really well. So then I was like, yeah, we got to do something bigger together.
Yeah, well, you guys knocked it out of the park with this. It's my first
Yeah.
introduction to Ben Passmore's work, so I definitely need to catch up on his work. But can you give our readers the elevator pitch for this book?
Yeah, Bottom Feeders is a story about gentrification on the south side of Chicago. It follows a young woman named Darla who moves to a blighted semi-industrial neighborhood in South Chicago to start a fashion design company. And she discovers that there's something lurking within the walls of her building. But the story is all about, like I said, gentrification, but probably more so cultural appropriation and complicity in destructive systems. I think Bottom Feeders was my way of interrogating my own complicity as a person of color living in gentrifying neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
and the way I make those neighborhoods seem more palatable to rich white people by virtue of me being light skinned and being an artist and several other factors like that. But yeah, it was just kind of like an introspective scathing critique of my own complicity and the complicity of my friends.
Okay, well, yeah, scathing definitely. It hits you, and it's just the art and the colors. You know, it sort of like not lulls you, but it. I don't even know how to describe it, but it just hits you in this certain way, you know, and you can't ignore it. And
I'm
it's
so
such an
glad to hear
important
that.
book. And I mean, anytime I have a chance to put a graphic novel list together or just any kind of book list, like we just read When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole,
Hmm.
which is another thriller that kind of centers around gentrification. And so I was like, Bottom Feeders has to go on that list. I was like, you guys, have, if you want, you know, if you want more, it's like, please check this book out because it's so important. And I mean, just especially just everything that's been happening this year, I was just like, this book is just so relevant, and the message is just something that everyone needs to kind of be reminded about.
Thank you. And you should check out Ben's stuff too, because Ben's doing really amazing stuff. Like Your Black Friend is really incredible. And
Mm-hmm.
he just put out a new one called Sports is Hell, which is a sort of surreal indictment of the culture of sports, and just like political tribalism, but it's really, really good.
I definitely will. Yeah, absolutely. I like I said, I try to get readers to, if you want a graphic novel, please try one of these because your mind's gonna be blown. And what I know you work in not just comics, but you do some other media as well. I think you've done some work with films. So what else have you been working on? What's coming out next for you, whether in print or other media?
I started working on TV writing this year. So I
Mm,
just finished my second writer's room. I worked on Doom Patrol season 3. So that's going to come out. I think season 3 comes out in the fall. So watch for that on HBO Max.
nice.
And also just working on developing new stories for film and TV and comics. I have a new comic pitch that I'm going to go out with very soon. So that'll
Awesome.
probably be, so my next comic will be like probably 2 years out, but there is something on the
Something to look
horizon
forward to.
at some
Yeah.
point.
Awesome. That's great. Before I let you go, where can readers find you online?
My website is EzraCDaniels.com, and I'm on all the social media apps. My tag is at Ezra C. Daniels, so it's easy to find me
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Awesome. And I think on your website, is your essay, Are You at Risk for Empathy Myopia? Is that fully online on your
Yeah,
website?
that whole thing is on my website. But
Awesome.
yeah, Are You at Risk for Empathy Myopia was a small self-published comics project that I put out after Bottom Feeder. So that's my most recent work, and it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of a polemic about the history and use and misuse of empathy as a tool for manipulation through the ages. And I worked with some really super inspiring and compelling people like sociologist Adam Waits and Paul Piff, who was the creator of the famous Monopoly test for empathy, which I talk about in the comic. But yeah, that was a comic that was really important for me, and so I put it all up for free. So I want people to be able to read it.
And they should, definitely. It's on this website, so go find it, people. You gotta read it. Well, is there anything else you want to promote? What are you reading or watching?
I've been reading a lot of stuff for I have a niece back in my hometown of Sioux City, Iowa, she just turned 12, and she is getting into comics. Nice. Thanks to me. I was like forcing comics down her throat. So I'm constantly looking for books that I can recommend to her. And there are a couple, she's also biracial. She's half Native and half white. So I'm looking for stuff that can kind of like open up her mind to her own cultural identity, because I know it's something that she's just finding interest in. So there was a book that Jim Terry just put out this year called Come Home Indio, which I actually blurbed on the cover. But it's such a great graphic memoir. I think it's so powerful, and it talks about him dealing with his duality of identity and just struggles with the substance abuse around him and his own substance abuse. I thought it was really powerful. So I picked that up. And then Map to the Sun by Sloan Leong. I think she's based in the Pacific Northwest somewhere, but she's very multicultural. I'm not even sure like what her ethnic background is. She's like a mix of a lot of things, but I know there's some indigenous in there. And she did this book called Map to the Sun. It's just like a really great kind of coming of age teen girl story about friendship and basketball. And it's just like really solemn, but also just really thoughtful and just excruciatingly beautiful. So that was a good one. There's another book, not for my niece, but this book I read a couple years ago that I don't know if it's widely available at libraries because it was put out by a publisher called Uncivilized Books, which is a smaller publisher, but it's called Fuchi Perf by Kevin Chapp. And it's sort of I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like a graphic poem about a world in the near future that is just kind of like a utopian, like a prescriptive utopian guide almost to creating a more equitable and sustainable society. And it's just really inspiring. I kind of like when I tell my friends and colleagues about it, I pitch it as like a kind of like a punk rock Star Trek. It's just like a story about, it's not set in space or anything, but it's just like a story about really talented, really smart people getting together, solving problems, and just making the world a better place. And it's a book I think about a lot.
Okay, I'll have to find that, definitely. Put it on my list. Well, Ezra, thank you again so much for chatting with me. It's been a huge honor for me, and I look forward to everything else that you're going to be putting out in the next couple of years.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks for having me, and hopefully see you in La Quinta at some point.
Yes, hopefully, near future. Yeah. Okay, bye.
Awesome, thanks.
Thanks for watching our BookFest Revisited series. See below for links to the author's social media pages and links to our catalog if you want to request any of their titles. Want to be notified when our newest videos come out? Click or tap on the red subscribe button. Happy reading!